Hello everyone and welcome to AZ 104 Microsoft Azure Administration course. My name is Ayman Cheta. I am a Microsoft certified trainer and I will be your host for this session. I am also a Microsoft Solution Architect Expert, Microsoft Certified Azure Data Engineer Associate, Azure Administrator Associate, and Azure Security Engineer Associate. Let's start with the first module in this course about identity. Going through the module overview, within lesson 1 we're going to go through overview for Azure Active Directory. In lesson 2 we're going to go through user and group, and we're going to have in lesson 3 module 1 lab. Starting with Azure Active Directory, lesson 1. Within this lesson we're going to go through Azure Active Directory, Azure AD concept, the difference between Azure AD and Azure Domain Service, which is the Active Directory on-prem. Going through Azure Active Directory different edition, how can we join our desktop or server to Azure AD using self-service password reset, and we're going to have a review for this lesson. Let's start with the first slide in this course about Azure Active Directory. Azure AD is a Microsoft multi-tenant cloud-based directory and identity management service at the same time, which means we can use Azure AD to break down a little bit. Identity is a new way to control plan. Identity and access management with built-in security in the cloud. By saying in the cloud, we still can use it on-prem also. We can manage identity at scale and keep threat at the bay. Also, please keep in mind that Azure Active Directory make it easy to connect all the nodes together, user, application, and devices. Azure AD is a Microsoft cloud-based identity and access management service, which help your employee and business user to sign in securely to get access to whatever organization resource you have. Let's go through some of the resources. Within every organization, we can have different type of resources. It can be external resource, such as Microsoft Office 365, Azure Portal, thousands of other software as a service application. And we can have internal resource, such as the application on your corporate network, intranet, along with the cloud application developed by organization. As we know, some of the organizations are using custom apps. Who's using Azure AD? What is the main intent for using Azure AD? One of the first is IT admin. As IT admin, you can use Azure AD to control access to your application, to manage security of your resource, to control whatever resource you have and based on your business requirement. For example, we can use Azure AD to require extra layer of security. As we know, the regular way to sign in by using a username and password, now we have option to add extra layer, for example, by using multi-factor authentication, and during the course we're going to talk about different layer of security which we can use to secure our sign-in. As we went through, now we can understand that we have two different type of solution. It's normally 3, but let's go through the first two. The first one, you can have online solution, which means everything, all your object is online, or we can use hybrid solution. Hybrid solution, ladies and gentlemen, is the most common used solution for the company. As you can see within the slide here, we have an on-prem. This is your company on-prem application on service, and we are connecting to different online service like Azure application, Office 365, Azure resource, using different type of protocol. And here we can have Windows Server Active Directory and Azure Active Directory. And we're going to talk later within the coming slide about the main difference between both. And that was just a quick overview about Azure Active Directory. Let's move next to understand the concept of Azure Active Directory. The better you understand Azure Active Directory, so let's go through different review and understand different type of term. Let's start with the first term or concept, which is identity. What exactly identity? The Azure Active Directory Enterprise Identity Service provide you different feature on service, like for example, multi-factor authentication, single sign-in, help you to protect your user, your resource from any type of cyber security attack. Can be used for identity also to increase the level of authentication identity by the user. The next concept is account. Identity has data associated with it. You can't have account without an identity. We must have identity. Next, Azure AD account. An identity created through Azure Active Directory or can be created by Microsoft Cloud Service such as Office 365. Identity also can be stored within Azure AD, and any company can get access to by getting access to your service tenant or subscription. Moving to next concept like Azure AD account. It can be used to get access to Azure service by using different methods. You can have different type of subscription, different payment, or you can have partnership, for example, with Microsoft. Creating, or the next is Azure tenant or getting your access to your Azure tenant. It's a dedicated type of trust instance of your Azure Active Directory. It can be created within your organization, can be used to sign in within your Microsoft Cloud Service subscription. And we can use different services like Microsoft Azure, Microsoft Intune, or using Office 365 or Microsoft 365. Please keep in mind that an Azure tenant represents a single organization. Can the organization have multiple tenants? Yes. Moving to the next concept about Azure Active Directory. Each Azure tenant has its own dedicated trusted Azure Active Directory, which means if I'm within my company, I have two different tenants, tenant A and tenant B. Each tenant have its own Active Directory. They are totally isolated. They are not affecting each other. And this, for example, whatever user and group we are creating in each one is total different area. Let's start with the difference between Active Directory Domain Service and Azure Active Directory. As we know, Active Directory Domain Service is traditional deployment of Windows Server based Active Directory, which can be as a physical server or it can be as a virtual server. We should consider that mostly Active Directory Domain Service is a directory service which have many different type of component and technology used. For example, like Active Directory Certification Service, Active Directory Light Directory Service, Active Directory Federation Service, and Right Management Service. Let's go through the difference between Azure AD and Active Directory Domain Service. As we are going within the Hyper solution using Azure AD and Active Directory Domain Service, we should understand there is many similarity between both, but at the same time there are many different also between both. Let's go through some of the characteristics which can be used within Azure AD, which make it different. First, identity solution. Azure AD is a primary and identity solution, which is designated for most of the internet-based application, which are using different protocol like HTTP or HTTPS protocol. Also, we have as a REST API query, which can be used and cannot be queried using the LDAP protocol, which is used with Active Directory Domain Service. A different type of communication protocol, for example, within Active Directory Domain Service, we can use such type of Kerberos authentication protocol, but we can use with Azure AD only HTTP or HTTPS by using the browser, as we know. The next service, like Federation Service. Federation Service is used within Azure Active Directory as a service, or it can be used also with many third-party services like Twitter or Facebook. Different type of structure we have within Azure Active Directory. Azure Active Directory use, for example, different objects like user and group, which can be created in a flat structure. There are no organization unit. There are no group policy object. If we remember, within Active Directory domain service, we used to create within the domain controller OU or creating group policy object. They are not available within Azure Active Directory. Azure Active Directory is managed service, which means you only manage the user, the group, and the policy. This is the three objects which we can manage. Moving next to the different edition of Azure Active Directory. We have 4 editions, and starting from the free one, Office 365 app, Premium 1, and Premium 1. Of course, the free edition will not be able to use it within the business. Moving to the next edition, Office 365 edition, we can use it within application, within Office 365, within a user, within a group, but there is a big difference between the Azure Active Directory Premium 1 and Premium 2 and the version which you are using within Office 365. The Premium edition is available within Microsoft Enterprise Agreement also, or it can be available also with Open Volume license and the cloud solution also. Let's go through the slide here. As we can see within, for example, some of the feature here, the number of object which can support. As we can see within the free one, we have limited support to 500,000 object. Within the other version, we have no object limitation. Using single sign-in is all the same by using unlimited. Let's go through the different. Also, we have identity and access, business-to-business collaboration. Identity and access for Office 365 is not available for the free one, but is available for application P1 and P2. Premium feature is not available within Microsoft 365. Now we are coming to the point where most of the feature will be available with the premium version, like advanced group access, condition access. This is an extra layer. If we remember, ladies and gentlemen, as we spoke about using multi-factor authentication to add extra layer of security, also we can use condition access as a second layer of security. With condition access, we check what type of device the user is using. Is this phone device or whatever type? It can be a tablet, can be a laptop. Such type of device is secure, is included all the application installed, is up to date. Second, within a condition access also we have the location. Where is the user is calling or trying to connect from? And during the course we're gonna go more in details about how can we apply condition access policy. Moving next, which is available with premium version 2, which is identity protection, which is a very common used security protection. And the last one, which is identity governance, and all available within the premium 2 version. It will be a good idea if you compare between both by going to Active Directory pricing page, and you're going to find the detailed information what exactly included in each edition. Let's move to another very nice topic here about Azure Active Directory Join. We have the option to link our Active Directory domain service to our Azure AD by joining your organization from on-prem to online. And as we know, using Azure Active Directory is meant to be a cloud-only identity. But we still have some organization which is you would like to join Active Directory to join a device, no matter the size or the industry which you are using. Azure AD Join work within the hybrid environment enable you to access both cloud and on-prem, which means we can manage both. We can migrate user from on-prem Active Directory to online by using a tools which called Azure AD Connect. It's a very small type of tools which can be installed on a member server. As soon as we install these tools and we start syncing between on-prem member server, one of the common questions, ladies and gentlemen, can we install the connector tools on a domain controller? Yes. Is it recommended? The answer is no. It will be the best to install it on a member server, and as soon as you finish defining whatever method for authentication, what type of protocol we're going to use it for authentication, we start linking or we start syncing between on-prem Active Directory and Azure Active Directory. Now the user can start signing in based on Premium 1 or Premium 2. As we're going to find some feature within these tools here, which is recommended to use P1 or P2, depending on your business need, business requirement. And this is just an example for how can we use such tool to join within Azure Active Directory or on-prem Active Directory. We have a different feature like SSO, single sign-in. We have also enterprise roaming. We can have access to Microsoft Store for Business using Windows Hello, restriction by using compliance policy, access to on-prem resource. So different type of restriction and access within Azure AD Join by using the Connect tools, which we're going to have a lab to understand how we're going to use these connector tools. Moving next to a very common use service, which we refer to as self-service reset password. This is just an example by going to your Active Directory, and we're going to have a demo so we can understand more about such type of authentication method. We're going to find the option authentication method. This is the different method which can be used for our authentication here, and we can define the number of methods required to reset. Method available for the user. It can be email, it can be application code, or it can be by sending a code to mobile phone, or it can be based also on a security question. And here we define the number of questions which can be used and number of questions required to reset also. Self-service password reset, as we refer to SSPR, gives the user the ability to change or reset their password. There is no administrator or there is no help desk involved in such type of information. Of course, it's going to save you time. If you remember the old way, whenever the user is having a problem with the password or forget the password or he can't log into his machine, one of the first steps he start calling the help desk, which costs you time for the IT department. If the user account is logged, he forgot his password, he have to follow some procedure, some step, so he can unblock his password, or he can change his password so he can start working without asking anyone, without asking the help desk. That means using such type of service or feature, ladies and gentlemen, can reduce the help desk call, can increase the productivity of the user. So whenever the user have a problem, it can be used. This is Azure Active Directory feature, which enables the user to reset his own password. The user can quickly unblock themselves. It's a very good capability to be able to use such type. Also, we have different type of SPR service like self-service allows the user to reset the password. We can have a password write back, and we can have such type of enable this service, which is by default is not enabled. We must enable this service. And this is one of the feature which is a very common use in an enterprise environment about resetting or giving the user ability or the service to reset their own password. Moving next to the second lesson about user and group, but before we start that with this section here, let's go through a demo about managing your Azure Active Directory. Let's jump over the Azure portal, and we can get to Azure Active Directory from the portal homepage by clicking on View, or by going to All Service by clicking under the All Service by scrolling down to Identity section. And we're gonna find under the Identity section all identity related directory. What we're looking for is the Azure Active Directory. Let's start with a quick overview, and we're not going to get more in detail about everything within this demo. It's just a quick overview, but we're going to have the chance to go through the lab, and within the lab we're going to have more option to understand more about Azure Active Directory. The first thing we can say about the beginning working with Azure Active Directory, we have a different option which can be used. If you have multiple tenants, we have the option to switch tenant. As we can see, this is the only tenant I have, but if you would like to create a new tenant, we have the option to create a new tenant, and then after that you can switch between tenant. Within the overview dashboard, we're going to find the tenant information. Under the tenant information, we're going to find more information about your current role. Like, for example, I am logging as a global administrator, and this is my account. This is the admin account, and I'm logging as a global admin. My license within this tenant is Azure AD Premium 2, which included all the feature. The next part is we're going to find information about Azure AD Connect, which is not installed, or let's say is not connected. Scrolling down, we have a different sign-in here, different feature here, different service here, which we're going to cover each one in detail within the course. This is just an example of using Azure Active Directory. By going to the left toolbar side, under the man section, we have different feature like the user feature, group feature, external identity if you would like to use, rule on the administrator, which can be used to add any type of rules, assign a user rules, administration unit, enterprise application can be used if you would like to add any application within your environment. As we can see here, for example, this is all the application which available for all the user within your Active Directory. Of course, we have different setting here. We have the option to add, for example, condition access. We can have setting for application proxy or user setting. Let's go back to our main page for our Azure Active Directory, scrolling down to different device. Within the device section here, we can add whatever device the user is using. We have up to 5 devices for each user. Moving down to application register, we can register application. Moving down to identity governance, and we can see that I'm getting access to identity governance because I'm using Premium 2. Moving down in case to configuring application proxy, different license, and using one of the AD Connect tools. This is the tools which we spoke about within the presentation, ladies and gentlemen. As we can see, is not yet installed. You can open this page, download the Azure AD Connect tools. It's a very small tools which can be used to sync between your Azure Active Directory and Active Directory domain service. And you're gonna see the sync time here. And this is one of the authentication protocol. As soon as you install the Connect, it's gonna ask you for what type of protocol, so you can define different type of protocol. As soon as you enable, you will be used for authentication. So you're gonna find more information here about AD Connect as soon as you install it on a member server. Also, you're gonna have the option to check the health of the Connect. Moving down to the custom domain service, as we can see, this is the default domain, which is not really very common use. Most of the companies, they start adding their own custom domain. By clicking add custom domain, and they start adding, for example, let's try to add any type of domain. For example, I'm gonna add abc.com, and I'm adding a domain. Now the system will start asking me if I am the owner. If you are the owner, it's gonna ask you just to add such type of record at the service provider or your domain service provider like GoDaddy or any other type of service provider. As soon as you click and you add this information, you can click verify. Of course, if I click verify now, it's gonna give me error message. Why? Because it's not verified that I am the owner of this domain. As we can see, it didn't take long until it gave me an error message. So as soon as you provide the information, as we can see, we have 2 different type of record. This is a text record, and if you would like to use the Exchange server, you have to add also the MX record. And after that, you can start using your abc.com. So which means you're gonna have the option whenever you create a new user, for example, you can give the email or as a domain name for the user. Let's go back to our Contoso here, and we're still under the man section. Let's go down, and we're gonna find here MDM and MAM about managing your device and managing your device application. Password reset option. This is a feature to reset the password. As we can see, it's different option. If you would like to enable the self-service password, which we already spoke about, and you can click all. If you would like to apply to all the user within your Azure Active Directory, or if you have a selected group, you can click in the group, then you start selecting whatever group you have here. For example, let's say, oh, okay, I would like to apply such type of service only for the IT, or it can be for HR also. So you can select whatever group you would like, and you click select, and I already enable this service or this feature to the HR group member. After that, don't forget to click save. Also, under the password, we have the authentication method. As we can see, we have different authentication method. How would you like to authenticate during using multi-factor authentication? We can define the number of method required, is only 1 or 2. Which type of method available can be based on application. It can be based mobile code. This is a very common use option, or it can be by sending email. So whatever company policy configure the standardization of such type of authentication method. Let's go back to our Azure Active Directory and scrolling down to another option to reset the password. Company branding. Within the company branding, here you go through any type of information which you would like to add, your company logo, your company any type of image, any type of setting you would like to add, or introduction about your company. Moving down to different setting about the user setting, property, and one of the most important topic is security. Let's go through the security, ladies and gentlemen. As we can see, just by clicking on security, I got another dashboard which included a lot of information. From here, we can start under the protection section. We can go through condition access. If we remember, we went through condition access, and we're gonna work more with the condition access during the course. Moving down to identity protection, how we're gonna use identity protection. Moving down to different options, for example, identifying your secure score. Let's go through identity secure score under the main section. This is my secure score, ladies and gentlemen. As we can see, we have different action which can be used to improve. This is just an example of effect of the action which affecting my system. As we can see, for example, here, which is a very high user impact, is using multi-factor authentication. So the recommendation of the identity secure score is to use multi-factor authentication, which I'm not really start using. Moving down to multi-factor authentication, I can start defining my multi-factor authentication and configure and start using multi-factor authentication within my environment. That was just a quick demo about the security. Of course, we still have more options by going through different here information. By configuring the condition access policy, one of the main configuration here is risk user and risk sign in. Risk user, which means I have to make sure that the user is safe, which means the user is calling me or trying to get access to resource from the same location. At the same time, sign in is signing in from a safe device, signing in by using a safe connection. And here you're going to find more report about a risk detection. Any type of risk, you're going to find more information about here. As we can see, mine is still clear, but during the course, we're going to go through this setting here for security. Let's go back to Azure Active Directory. And that was just quick overview for Azure Active Directory. As we can see that Azure Active Directory included many features, which one course is not enough to cover all. I'm just going through a quick demo, and within the lab, we're going to go more in details, working with different features and services. Let me go to one of the features here to have a quick overview, which is the user section. This is just an example for the user section, ladies and gentlemen. We can have the user section here. As we can see, this is the user, this is your UPN, type of user or member. As we can see, we can identify here your account. Identify Azure. As we can see, this is all online account, ladies and gentlemen. This is all online account. As we can see, we are using the default domain name because we didn't configure the custom domain yet. Of course, as soon as you finish syncing between your Active Directory domain service, you're going to find some user here, object here, which they are synced from on-prem server. As you can see, we have a different option. We can start creating a new user from here, moving to a new guest user, creating a bulk of user, and enabling multi-factor authentication. And this is the part which I would like to go through. So let me click on multi-factor authentication, and now I'm start configuring whatever multi-factor authentication. Within the multi-factor authentication, ladies and gentlemen, we have a different service. Let's start with the user service. As we can see, by default, multi-factor authentication is all disabled. If you would like to enable multi-factor authentication, it can be based on a bulk update, or would you like to use it for any specific account? Let's take this account for example. As we can see, we have the option to enable multi-factor authentication for this user. It will not take long, and multi-factor authentication already enabled for the Megan user. This is just example how we can use multi-factor authentication. If you would like to enable for all the users within your environment, this is also available option. Let's go to another type of setting under the multi-factor authentication, which is a service setting. I'm not really diving much deep in detail about that, but during the course we're going to have more demo and more labs, so which make it easy for you to understand the different settings. As we can see, this is just about application password. We can define using such type of service. Also, we can use trusted IP address. For example, I can link IP address to the user, which means this is going to be the only IP address. If the user tries to connect from a different IP address, the user will go through deny access. Also, we have another verification option, like for example, it can be text message to phone, any type of notification through mobile app. This is just example for using, remember, multi-factor authentication on a trusted device for how long, how many days, and you click save, and this is your service setting. This is another layer of security by using multi-factor authentication. Let's go back to our Azure Active Directory, and that was just a quick demo. On the left toolbar here, we're gonna find delete option. If you delete any user from here, you're gonna find it under the delete section, which you're gonna stay there for 30 days. Moving down to the option to password to set, adding different user setting, adding different activity, getting more audit log about the user. Here you can see what exactly the user, different activity like the sign in. You will get also such type of information about different sign in within the user. As we can see, it's collecting information. This is the different user with my environment. It's giving me all the indication, any type of failure, interrupt, any type of problem, where they are trying. The IP address, as we can see, this is the same IP address which I'm using, but in business environment, maybe gonna give you different. As we can see, there is a different IP address here. Also define whatever location we have. As we can see, our condition access policy is not already applied, or multi-factor authentication. Let's go back to Active Directory, and during the course we're gonna work more, practice more, doing many labs within Azure Active Directory. That was just a quick demo about Azure Active Directory, ladies and gentlemen. I hope it was clear. Please, if you have any question, please let me know. And let's go back to our slide and moving to the next lesson, to user and group.